That is John 21, verses 5, 6, and we're going to skip down to verse 10. Then Jesus said unto them, Children, have ye any meat? They answered him, No. And he said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. Verse 10. Jesus said unto them, Bring of the fish which ye have now caught. And if you will notice, I'm going to put emphasis on this now. If you will notice, we read the scriptures where Jesus is asking a question and or he is making a statement to the disciples. And in our series, Fish or Faith, part 1, we've been in a series entitled Fish or Faith. And in part 1 of the series, we talked about changes. Changes can be scary and uncomfortable, but changes are necessary. As if the changes are not enough to navigate through, now comes a need. Can anybody relate to that? I'm going through all of these changes, and I know that I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm dealing with all of these changes. And on top of trying to navigate my way through the changes that life is actually bringing and I'm having to deal with, I now have a need on top of having to process mentally the changes. The two are simultaneously sharing the stage. One has a microphone and the other one has a bullhorn, and they both are calling for attention. Can anybody relate to that? Not only are my changes talking to me and telling me certain things, but now my need is talking to me and saying certain things. And as if both of their voices are magnified, they both are sharing the stage at the same time. So I'm having to deal with changes. Not only am I having to deal with changes, I now have a need on top of the changes. That's what we dealt with in part 1 of the series Fish or Faith. And in part 2 of the series Fish or Faith, we saw that the disciples had fished throughout the night, Mind you, some of the disciples were professional fishermen, but they still didn't catch anything. And unrecognizably, Jesus asks them, he's standing on the shore, and Jesus asks them, he said, do you have any meat? Or basically, did you catch any fish? And they told Jesus the truth about their reality. How many of you know that you can be truthful with God about the things that you are dealing with, the things that you are facing, the things that are pressing upon you? You can be open and honest with God about them. And the disciples, they did just that. They were open and honest, and they told Jesus the truth about their reality. They said, no, we didn't catch anything. And then Jesus instructs them through the changes to address their needs. I'm going to say that again. Jesus instructs them through the changes to address their needs. Come on, somebody's been wondering, I've been dealing with this change and things are not like they used to be. And on top of that, I'm in need of something. How in the world am I going to get through this? Can anybody relate to that? You've been wondering, how are you going to get through the changes? How are your needs going to be met? I'm dealing with both of them at the same time. But as we just heard, Jesus instructs them through the changes to address their needs. I just need for somebody to type that over in the chat box or in the message section. The instructions are going to get me through this. Come on. The instructions are going to get me through this. I've been wondering, how am I going to come out? I've been wondering, how am I going to make it through this? But according to the word of the Lord, his instructions are going to navigate you through the changes. And then the changes that you make, and as you follow his instructions, it is going to address your need. It is going to address your need. The instructions are going to get you through this. Talking about the disciples now have a catch that is greater than anything that they could have ever imagined. And they have so much that the catch is so great that they cannot even pull all the fish up out of the water and get them into the boat. But nevertheless, upon getting out of the boat, they finally managed to get to the shore where Jesus is. And as they are walking up on the shore, they find the fire. And on the fire is fish and bread. Come on here. I just need for that's Aretta's thing that she's been saying throughout the week. I'm gonna get the fish and the bread. And we know that in part 2 of this, we talked about the bread being the unexpected, because all Jesus asked them about was the fish. Come on here. The bread was unexpected, so was the fire. I need for somebody to catch that. The bread and the fire, or the fire and the bread, was unexpected. So as we walk in the things of God, we are going to have, come on here, he's going to do the unexpected for us. The thing that we didn't even think was going to happen, the thing that we thought that could not even happen. God says, as you follow my instructions, I'm going to do the unexpected for you. And that's what the fish, that's what the fire and the bread represents. He told them how to get the fish, but he never said anything about the fire and the bread. And Jesus used the fish as a surrogate. And we talked about this last week, and we're still doing a recap of last week. Jesus used the fish as a surrogate to push out of them what was in them so they could walk in it. I'm going to say that again. Jesus used the fish as a surrogate to push out of them what was in them so they could walk in it. And today, we want to add to what we presume will be the last installment of this series, Fish or Faith. And if I could use for a subject message on today, it would be entitled, I Knew. I Knew. If I could use for a subject message today, I would like to use the subject message, I Knew. I knew. Have you ever wondered, does God know? I'm going through all of these things. I'm going through the frustration. I'm going through the heartache, the pain, and the disappointment. But I'm wondering, does he really know? Come on. If I can just get some honest people to give me a hand wave or just type it over in the chat section. That's me. I've been wondering, does he know? Does he know how hard this is? Does he know, watch this, how frustrated I really am? And not only does he know, the question, ponders and lingers or sprints through my mind, does he know, but does he really know how tired I am? Is there anybody that can say, I'm just a little tired? Does he know? Does he know that I'm tired? Does he know right here at this point, this is where I think I need to take me a 30 break? Come on here. Can anybody relate to the fact I just need to take me a 30 break? Come on, I'm not talking about minutes either. I'm talking about days. Come on. Can you relate to that? I ain't talking about minutes. I just need to take me a 30 break. I just need 30 days free of this. I just need for everything to go right for these next 30. I've been waiting for it. Does he know I really need me a 30 break? And again, we're not talking about minutes. On the job, they'll give you about 30 minutes for a break, but I need a 30-day break. And I ask myself the question, does he know? And those thoughts run through my mind. Does he know? And if you can relate to what I'm getting ready to say, then just hear me out and give me a virtual sign or type something over in the chat box that you can relate to what I'm getting ready to say. And if I really be truthful about it, I know that he knows, because I know that he knows all things. But those thoughts run rampant, not because it's a real question of if he knows, but basically, when we feel like somebody knows something, then we build up the expectation of a response being given. Come on here. When you know something, I'm expecting for you to respond. It's not that if I'm really questioning if you know, because in my heart of hearts and in my mind, I know that you know what's going on. But what is happening is I've built up this expectation for you to respond. Come on here. I built up this expectation for you to respond. And when a response cannot be detected, the question automatically presents itself. Can anybody relate to that? I know he knows what I'm going through. I know he knows what I've been feeling and what I've been dealing with. But what's really happening is that I've built up the expectation to see a response to what I know he already knows. And when I cannot detect that response that I'm expecting, the question automatically presents itself. Because I'm expecting a response that I cannot detect. Can anybody relate to that? I'm expecting a response that I cannot detect. And so therefore, when I cannot sense that response, the question automatically pops up. Does he know? Does he know? Does he know? And Jesus in our text, he knew that he was going to prepare a meal for the disciples. But yet he still had them to fish. Oh God, can anybody relate to that? Jesus knew that he was going to prepare a meal for the disciples. But yet still he had them to fish. What's that about? He told you that he was going to fix the marriage, but you're still having the same issues. He told you that he was going to bless you in your finances, but you're still having the same issues. He told you that he was going to bless the business, but you're still having the same issues. He told you that he was going to manifest your healing, but you're still having the same issues. What's that about? He told you that he got you, but you're still having to go through the process of dysfunction and discomfort. Can anybody relate to that? I know what God told me, but I'm still having to go through this process. I thought he knew. Not only did I thought that he knew, I actually thought he would come quicker. Can anybody relate to that? I thought he was going to come quicker than this. I thought that this was going to be a little bit faster. But he knew. Can somebody just type it over in the chat section? He knew. He knew. He's still having me to go through the process. I know that he promised me something, but I'm still, is there anybody that can say I'm still having to go through this process? I know what he said, but I'm still having to go through this process. And if I can just be 100 with you, I don't even like it. I thought we would go straight to the results. Was anybody else thinking that? I just knew that once he said it, that we were going, it wasn't going to be too much longer. It wasn't going to be too much longer because he said it. And I started to look for it. And Jesus knew what he was going to do, but yet still he had the disciples to fish. So knowing what he was going to do, he had them to fish. So clearly, come on here, that tells us that the fish were the results, but the fish were not the goal. Come on, did somebody just catch that? The fish were the result, but the fish were not the goal. I just came to tell you, and I'm going to take my time with this on today. A lot of times, if we're not careful, we just want to settle for the results. Come on here. Because what the results will do is the results will alleviate the discomfort and the dysfunction. Is there anybody like me that's been looking for the results, but it's been taking a little bit longer than what you expected? I've been looking for the results. I've been expecting the results. I've even been frustrated because I hadn't seen what I was looking for. I know that God has promised me something. I know that God has told me that he was going to take care of it, and he had it all up under control, but I'm still having to go through this process. Because how many of you know that you can get the results and still miss the goal of what's intended and or necessary? Whew, I'm going to say that again. You can get the results and still miss the goal of what's intended and or necessary. And for those of you who are taking notes, that will be something real good to jot down right there. Because if we're not careful to alleviate the dysfunction and to alleviate the discomfort, we oftentimes will settle for the results. And most of the time when we settle for results, that oftentimes means that we have done it our own way. Oh God. We have done it in a way that alleviates the discomfort, but we're still missing the goal. Whew, I'm gonna go a little bit deeper on that in just a second. Watch this. We're getting the results that we want. So now we don't have to feel the discomfort. Can anybody relate to that? I've done some things to alleviate the discomfort in this thing, but I'm still missing the goal of what God is trying to accomplish. So this is why he's taken me the way that he's taken me. This is why he knew that he was going to, watch this, he knew that he was going to provide the fish for the disciples, but he said the fish is not the goal. The fish is the results. He said, I don't want you, watch this, to miss the goal because you're settling for results. Woo. And oftentimes, if we're not careful, we will end up getting the results that we want, but we miss the goal of what God is trying to accomplish. We're missing what's necessary. All because we're trying to alleviate something. Can you just think back? I don't know. Some of us might have to think back a little bit further than some others. There are some things that I know that God has promised me. I know that there are some things that he told me that he was going to do for me. But because I got impatient, I got impatient. I created a situation to get me the results. Watch this. That God had already promised me was mine anyway. I created a situation because I didn't want to go through the discomfort. I didn't want to go through the process. I didn't want to have to go through denying myself. I didn't want to have to go through the withdrawal. I didn't want to have to go through the frustration. I didn't want to have to go through the disappointment. So I created something to mitigate those feelings. Come on. Can anybody relate to that? I've created some stuff sometimes myself because I didn't want to go through the pain. I didn't want to go through the discomfort. I didn't want to go through the dysfunction of it. Only to find myself having to replay this whole situation out again. Can anybody relate to that? There's been some things I've created in my life that I've had to go through this process all over again because I got the results that I wanted. Come on. I got the results I wanted, but I missed the goal of what God was trying to birth out of me because it was necessary. It was necessary. And again, you can get results and still miss the goal of what God is intending and or what God deems necessary. And just because you got results don't mean that you met the goal. The fish, for the disciples, the fish were the results. But the goal was to get them to operate in faith. Come on here. Remember what the title of our series is, Fish or Faith. Is it really about the fish? I need for somebody to catch that. The fish were the results, But the goal was to get them to operate in faith. I'm going to say that again because I need for the body, I need for Life Meets the Word to really get that on this morning. The fish were the result, but the goal was to get them to operate in faith. I see you, woman of God. That's good right there. I'm going to say it again. The fish was the results, but the goal was to get them to operate in faith. And if we're not careful to alleviate the dysfunction and the discomfort, we will settle for the fish. Come on. And miss the goal of operating in faith. Oh, you got to catch that. That's good. And if you look over in your chat section, I got some people helping me preach on today, and I'm going to use it. They said faith. Watch this. Faith was what got them the fire and the bread. Come on. She said faith got them the fire and the bread. Oh, I love that, woman of God. Thank you for your help. Because if we're not careful, watch this, we will just settle for the fish. And Jesus said, this is why I just didn't provide the fish. Because I knew that there was something else that you needed. I'd already promised you the fish. I told you how to get the fish. But because fish were not the goal, your faith was. Your faith brought the fire and the bread. Come on here. Your faith produced the unexpected. Your faith produced the abundance of. The fish was used as a surrogate so faith could make its grand entrance. But the thing that I need for you to understand, faith didn't come empty-handed. As the woman of God said in the chat box, the faith brought some stuff with it. Come on here. I need for you to know this is why you don't want to leave out your faith, because your faith ain't coming empty-handed. Come on. Antonio, help me out, because what's your faith? This is the fish. I got the fish. I got the fish. But what happens is when your faith comes up, your faith brings some stuff with it. Your faith brings some stuff with it. Your faith said, I ain't coming empty-handed. Your faith says, I'm coming loaded and ready to perform. I'm bringing some stuff with me. Come on here. Can anybody relate to that? Your faith is saying, I'm bringing some stuff with me. I need for you to understand that you don't have to have faith if you don't want the fire and the bread. If you don't want the fire and the bread, you don't have to have faith. Because in your own ability, you can get some results. But remember what we said, just because you get results don't mean that you met the goal. And the fish were used as a surrogate so faith could make its grand entrance. Some of us have been wondering, why am I having to go through this? Why am I having to go through the process? If God told me that he was going to make everything all right, if he was going to manifest it, why am I still having to go through the financial troubles? Why am I still having to go with being alone at night and not having someone that I can cuddle up with? Why am I still having to go through these things? Because basically what he's saying to you is, he said, yes, you can get your own results. He said, but listen, you can get your own results, but your faith is going to be the only thing that's going to allow you to birth the fire and the bread. Because the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what we going to do when we need some more fish? Hmm? And if anybody knows, come on, if anybody knows, see, your faith brought in something that could help you when you catch the fish. Come on here. The faith, your faith brought the fire and the bread. And we all know what bread does for you. Bread makes you full. Come on here. Bread makes you satisfied. Bread stretches you out. Huh? That's what your faith does. Your faith, watch this, because anytime that you have the fire of faith, whoo, come on, catch that. Anytime you have the fire of faith, let me just put it plain and simple this way. The fish ain't no good without the fire. Come on. Hmm? I'm gonna say that again. The fish ain't no good without the fire. And if y'all from the country like me, your fish ain't even good if you ain't got no hush puppies and light bread and hot sauce. Come on. Huh? So that's what your faith does. So anytime, watch this, your faith is on the scene, the fire and the bread. I need the fire and the bread because my fish ain't no good without it. Come on. Uh, I just want to serve notice on the people that just settled for the fish. The fish ain't gonna be no good without the fire and the bread. And the fire and the bread represents your faith. You got the results that you wanted because now I'm not having these urges anymore. I'm not having to fight this fight anymore. I'm not having to deal with the dysfunction and the discomfort anymore. But the thing that you lack is the fire. God let the disciples go through the process anyway. He knew what he was going to do. I just need for somebody to type it over in the chat box. He already knows what he's going to do. He already knows what he's going to do. It ain't about the fish. It ain't about the fish. Could it be? Could it be that your situation is the surrogate so your faith can have long life influence? So when your situation is narrating a certain response to you, your faith will command something different. Has anybody ever experienced something where you look at your situation and your situation tells you to be afraid, to be very afraid? Come on. To be afraid. Your situation is telling you that you got to do something. And not only do you have to do something, but you need to do something quick. Even if it's the wrong thing, do something quick. Because your situation is trying to get you to abort the process. The process is necessary. It's necessary. Have you ever had one of those situations where it says, be afraid, be very afraid, but your faith comes in and says, I've seen him do it before. I'm going to stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Your situation says, this ain't going to work out this time. And your faith comes in and says, I know he's not a God that shall lie, neither is he the son of man that he should repent. Had he said, and shall he not do it? Has he spoken, and shall he not make it good? He gonna make it good. Your faith comes in and says, he gonna make it good. Your situation says, I don't see how you're going to get out of this, but your faith comes in and says, he is the way. Your situation says, there is no way out. Your faith comes in and says, he is the door. And I heard God as I was getting this message, because I specifically asked God, I said, God, I said, what is it that you want your people to hear on today. And I heard God speak these words. He said, tell them that I knew. He said, I knew. And this is why when we read verses 5, 6, and 10, I only referenced in those scriptures to what God was either saying and or asking the disciples. Because sometimes, watch this, we feel like God is asking us for something that we don't have. Have you ever felt that way? God is asking me for something that I don't have. He's asking me for something that I don't feel like I can give. Ooh. He's asking me for something that I don't even feel like I can really do. Because I can't see how. Is there anybody that can relate to that? I don't see how. And I heard God say, he said, tell them that I knew. I not only knew what I was asking, I knew what I was saying. I also knew what I was going to do. He said it was never the problem of if he knew. Come on here. He said, but he did those things so you could know. Come on here. That's why you had to go through the process. Even though you had a promise concerning it. He said, that's why I allowed you to go through the process of it. Because I knew that I knew, but I needed you to know what I would do. He said, like I knew what I was asking and saying to the disciples, he said, so I knew what I have been asking and saying to you. He said, I knew where I was taking you. But I also knew that you needed faith. Watch this, not to just go where I was taking you, but to be able to stay where I was taking you. Because oftentimes we get mixed up and we get excited about going. Come on. But we don't get excited about staying. We get excited about going. But we don't get excited about staying. We get excited about going, but we don't get excited about staying. Come on. I get excited when God says that he's going to bless me in my finances. Come on. But in order to stay there, I got to implement discipline so I can stay there. That means sometimes, watch this. That means sometimes I got to tell myself no to certain things so I can stay there. And he said, I knew where I was taking you. You needed faith that was going to have a longer influential presence. Watch this, than the money. You needed faith because faith was going to have a longer influential presence than any problem that you would face. Because that's been the question that some of us have been pondering. If God says this, if he says he's going to bless me, why am I still having to go through the dysfunction and the discomfort? Come on. If I can get some people to be real with me over here in the chat section or give me a virtual hand wave, has anybody been thinking that? If he said he was going to do this, then why am I still having to go through the process of discomfort and dysfunction? Because in your flesh only wants the results. Come on here. Because the results will alleviate the dysfunction and the discomfort. But your spirit man says, I want to please God. I want God to be pleased with my life. And so God said, this process, I knew that I had to take you through the process. I'm going somewhere with it. Stay with me just for a little while longer. I had to take you through the process because I did not want you to settle for just the result. I didn't want you to settle for just any Tom, Bob, and Barry. Come on. So I had to take you through that season of loneliness. I had to take you through that season of loneliness and going home to an empty bed, longing to be with someone that loved you and you loved them, that would care for you and you cared for them. I had to take you through that season. And for the men, we use Tom, Bob, and Barry for the women. And for the men, I had to take you through that season of loneliness where you didn't have Shanika, Keisha, and Kathy. So you could operate in faith. Because you don't want just the results. Come on. You can get fish and poles anywhere. Come on. They sell them at your local store every day. Fish and poles. Come on here. But God said, I took you through that process so your faith would produce, watch this, the fire and the bread. Come on. The fire and the bread. That whenever you're in a situation that ain't producing just right, you got the substance, come on, of what you need to create everything that ain't showing up in your life. Everything that he promised. That's why I took you through the process. I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was doing when I took you through the process. I knew what I was doing when I promised it to you. I just needed you to develop the faith to believe me for it. Come on. Huh? I needed you to develop the faith that when you had other options in front of you, you said, I'm going to use my faith to believe God. I'm going to use my faith to stand on the word of God. I'm not just going to, come on, I just need for somebody to type that over in the chat box. I just don't want any kind of results. Come on. I just don't want any kind of results. You don't got to do it, Antonio. I just don't want any kind of results. I just need for LaShawn. I think she left, but we'll get her to do it later. I just need for somebody, come on, Loretta, and help me out on this. I'm goal oriented. Come on. Hashtag goals. Hashtag goals. I just don't want any kind of results. And God said, I needed you to know that. That's why. Come on. That's why I've been taking you through the process. I've been taking you through the process because there are goals. Is there anybody that can say, I got some goals? I got some goals. And for some of us who are wondering, how will I know that I've reached the goal of faith? How will I know that I have acquired the faith that I need for this place that I'm in? Here's your answer to that, because God said, I want you to know what that answer is. How you will know that you have reached the goal of faith in this particular place. Because true faith, hear me good, true faith will always produce obedience. Oh, come on. True faith will always produce obedience. How will you know that you have reached the goal and just not settled for results? Woo. Oh, God. How you will know that you have reached the goal of faith and just not settled for results is because when you have other options that are in front of you that will alleviate your dysfunction and your discomfort, if it does not line up with the will and the word of God, and you do not accept the invitation, that's how you will know that you have reached the goal that God has set before you for this place that you are in, because you will not settle for just having the result. Hear me good on that. That's how you will know that you have reached the goal of faith for the place that God has you in right now. Because when you have other options, hello, baby, can you come over? No, I can't. Can I come over? No, you can't. Why? Because we got goals to meet, baby. Hashtag goals. Well, can we do this? No. Trust me, I know. I know how it would feel. And I want that more than you do. Trust me. But because I'm at a place in my life that I just can't settle for results. Oh, y'all need to catch that. There's a difference between results and goals. Can I come over? No. But we can talk. As long as the conversation don't go left. Can we, not only that, when you're dealing with the financial situation and there's other ways and you don't take that way because you said, I'm going to trust God. Come on. I'm going to trust God. That's how you're going to know that you've reached that level, when you can consistently stand firm in knowing, no matter how much your situation of discomfort and dysfunction is pushing up against you. I just ain't here for the goal. I just ain't here for the results. Come on here. I'm here because I got goals I got to meet. I'm goal oriented. I ain't taking no shortcuts on this one. Because I got some things in my life that I'm believing God for. God said, I knew why I took you through the process. He said, the results, that's easy. But the goals are more challenging. Accomplishing the goals are more challenging. I knew what I was doing. I knew I was using that situation as a surrogate to push out of you what was in you so you could walk in it. What is the it we've been talking about over the last few weeks that you're supposed to walk in? It's your faith. Come on here. It's your faith. It's your faith. Because the reason that it was so important for you to have faith is because everything that God created, it was created with words and faith. That's why your process was so important for you. Because whenever you faced a situation where you could not see your way through, where you did not know how God was going to come through, you did not know how this was going to work, he said your faith will come in and uphold you in it. Your faith was going to bring the fire and the bread. Come on. Your faith. This is not to hurt you. The process was not meant to hurt you. But the process was meant to get you in a healthier state, that whenever you was faced with something that would not line up with what God has promised you, what God has said concerning you, you had, watch this, the necessary essentials to create it. And if you look at the scripture, by faith, this was created. Come on here. I need for y'all to catch that. God said, I'm giving you. I allowed the situation to produce in you what you needed. I allowed the situation to produce in you what was needed, so you would never be in lack. Come on here. I allowed the situation to produce in you what was needed, so you would never be in lack. And remember what we teach and what we preach here at Life Meets the Word. You can be in the will of God and have a need, but you cannot be in the will of God and have lack. I used the situation to produce what you needed, so you would not have lack. Come on. True faith, as we get ready to close, true faith will always produce obedience.